program, and Ellen, you're welcome to join us, because the next part of our program was that we hoped that you would talk to us and that we would talk to each other, our speakers would talk to each other, and I can facilitate that. So if we want to start with if you guys, any of you have a question for each other, we can start there, otherwise I, of course, have questions. Does anybody have a question? Want me to start? I'll start. I'm going to give a scenario, and I'm going to ask these guys what I should have done. I'm probably 6 months into a new job at a fairly high level, and I'm sitting in a room at a meeting with two men, and we're meeting briefly on our way into another meeting. And one of them mentions something that I have no idea what he's talking about. I have absolutely no idea. And people who know me, I usually know what's going on. And they start exchanging glances and being the guys that are speaking another language. So I say, what are you guys talking about? Nothing you don't need to know. So now I say, is it relevant to our next meeting? Yes, it's relevant to our next meeting, but you don't need to know. It's very interesting. So I say, not being one to quit, I say, and I probably wouldn't do enough preparatory talk, I say, you know, it would be helpful probably for all of us to get to what we want to out of the next meeting for me to know so I can be part of your team. No, you don't need to. So now I try to do it. So now I say, you know, I do a lot of things well, but I don't do dumb girl well. Just can't do it. Nobody laughs. I got nowhere. What would you guys have done?
Let me decide if I need to know.
Sadly true story.
Did it come up in the meeting? Did you recognize?
They had a whole lot of background information and data that they were going to spring in the meeting. So there was a whole pre-meeting and conversation that I was excused. That was relevant to the meeting. And I probably can't talk in more detail.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I would be searching for where their self-interest was. That this strategy of theirs to exclude you was going to bite them up their butt somewhere. And it might not have been possible in time for this meeting to identify that, but that would have been my strategy coming out. Okay, I see what's going on here, and then I think I would be looking for where they interfered with their self-interest and how I would use that.
So, you know, what do they call Monday morning quarterbacking? Hard. So I would have, I think, looking for the hook for the future is really good, and I'm sure you did that. But if any of the rest of you are in a situation like that, one of the other pieces of data that comes out of that wonderful book called The Male Factor is that there's a code that men are comfortable with, and it has to do with learning how to disagree without being disagreeable. So I might not have pushed the fourth time.
Where have I heard that?
Yeah. Oh, have you heard it before? Because I come up to places. Yeah. And looking to make an alliance when they aren't paired to figure out what was going on would be another piece to think about.
Yeah, because
I think the hums in the room, they got it. Neither one could be space.
Right, they were
To giving into.
And the serenity prayer.
Right.
You did great not
You
losing
did
it.
great, I know.
You didn't see me at home that night, were you?
But you know, I'm hearing this a lot from women who are in the ring for running for office. You know, the male candidates are getting called for forums and conversations, and the female candidates are being left off the platform, and they're being found out afterwards, and they're saying, geez, how can I, you know, I'm actually the policy expert of the three of us, you know, and I'm not at the table. How can I not be at the table? Well, part of that is the strategy to keep them from the table. Because if you're not at the table, then you're on the table, and that's kind of the way that they want it. So I think, to Susan's point and to Judith's point, I think you have to sort of divide and conquer well in advance of meetings like that. You know, and to some of the points you were making about, you know, what are the higher level, you know, what are they thinking about at that top echelon? And what do I need to know, and where can I find that information out, and how can I use that to my advantage? So I might be knowledgeable on some of that when we walk into the meeting. They might not be sharing with me as I'm walking into the meeting because they want to save face, but I'm knowledgeable when I'm sitting at the table to really be able to shape the conversation. So, you know, it goes back to we have to do a little extra work.
Stories. Who has stories that they'd like to share or ask about or? Jerry has. Where's Gary? Ellen.
Yeah, so, you know, this is probably, I know this is probably way beyond the scope, but one of the things that, as I was listening to the first presentation particularly, about how, you know, in the beginning it was, you know, you're not crazy, this is what is happening. You know, one of the things that really struck me is that how much more work we have to do. And you know, there's kind of this, in some ways, as a powerful force in our culture right now. You know, we're trying to fit, it's like trying to fit a square, you know, thing into a round hole. And you know, I just wonder about, you know, speaking to stress and distress, about how much we're trying to force ourselves into a kind of cognitive paradigm about power and where power is and how it's used, and that, you know, we're sacrificing in some ways something of ourselves to try to move up in this very linear, hierarchical, very masculine paradigm. And for me, there's always kind of an edge to that. And I don't think that we can just say, oh, well, it's either or. Because that's another sort of black, white, either or, good, bad, man, woman. You know, we get into a whole bunch of either ors. You know, is there a way to exert power and influence? And I don't mean this in like those old-fashioned ways either, you know, pin money kind of way. But is there a way that women can start to do that without, and kind of push the edges of that?
Without losing who you are.
Without losing who you are.
And as I was listening to this and you and to the conversation we're all having about understanding metrics on top, so that you are in some ways playing to those metrics. And then I wonder, and I probably wondered for myself as well as for other people, when I don't play to the metrics, is it because I don't know the metrics and I'm not paying attention to them, or is it because I honestly don't care about those metrics?
Right.
And what do you do about that?
And are those metrics really relevant?
And are they accurate to you, or are they what your values are?
Right.
And how do you balance that?
Yeah. So I'll be talking a little bit about that in a few minutes, actually, because it's, you know, there's a lot of research out there and data that shows that, you know, one woman in a space or place is not enough. And so oftentimes we have this expectation, you're the woman in the situation, and so now you're going to open the door and let everybody